Good evening and welcome to the City of Isani City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 21st. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we can all rise for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Doing roll call. Please state your name and say here, if you would, please.
Paul Bergley here.
Steve Lundeen here.
Jimmy Gordon here.
And we do know that Councilman Collison is absent and has been excused. But I, Jeff Johnson, am also here. Any public comment at this time? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
With the changes.
We do have an addendum this evening, and it is to add business item K1, Cambridge Isani District 911, school referendum information.
Motion to adopt with the changes.
Second.
Motion to adopt the agenda with the added school information by Councilman Bergley and a second by Councilman Lundeen. All in favor, state your name and say aye.
Aye, Paul Bergley.
Aye, Steve Lundeen.
Aye, Jimmy Gordon.
And I, Jeff Johnson. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the approval of, I must have two different versions. Here we go. There is a proclamation. The proclamation is the Minnesota Manufacturers Month. So October is Manufacturers Month. And whereas manufacturing is a dynamic and robust industry critical to the health and strength of Minnesota's diverse economy, and whereas manufacturing added $50.8 billion to Minnesota's economy in 2020, representing the second largest contribution, 14%, to the state's gross domestic product by any industry, and whereas workers took home $21.9 billion in wages from Minnesota manufacturing jobs in 2020, the second largest payroll among private sector industries. And whereas manufactured exports brought $19 billion into the Minnesota economy in 2020, and whereas manufacturing in Minnesota pays an average annual wage of $70,860, which is 10% higher than the state's overall average wage, and whereas manufacture provides 309,000 highly skilled, well-paying jobs, which significantly contribute to Minnesota's high standard of living and economic vitality. Now therefore, I, Jeff Johnson, Mayor for the City of Isani, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 shall be observed as Manufacturing Month. Approval of the City Council minutes for September 7th, which is a regular City Council meeting, August 4th, which was the Economic Development Authority meeting, and August 17th, which was a Planning Commission meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Lundeen and a second by Councilman Bergley. Please state your name and say aye.
Paul Bergley, aye.
Steve Lundeen, aye.
Jimmy Gordon, aye.
And myself, Jeff Johnson, aye. Those opposed, state your name as well. There is 0. Therefore, it passes 4-0. At least you know I can count, that's right. Announcements. Park and Recreation and Culture Board meeting will be Tuesday, September 28th at 6 p.m. City Council meeting will be Tuesday, October 5th at 7 p.m. And a Economic Development Authority meeting will be Tuesday, October 5th as well, immediately following that council meeting. Any council committee reports? Since Councilman Lundeen was absent at the last fire district meeting, yours truly was the
City representative.
city representative. I did discuss with Mr. Becker that the Fire District is looking, Mr. Becker, you're gonna have to correct me if I'm incorrect on anything that I'm gonna say here, because you're gonna know the financial terms. So I would like you to pick up from here so I don't put my foot in my mouth.
Well, they're considering what the budget will be for next year, and looking at adding funding for capital improvements. They've got what one might call an aging fleet. And so if they went straight to the level that they would like to fund capital improvements, the overall revenue that they would need to disperse among the townships in the city of Iceni would go up about 22%. And I think the consensus of the board was that they would rather keep that at 9.99% or less as an increase. And we had already budgeted for most of that increase on our end in anticipation of that, so.
Which on average was like $2 a month, $40 a year,
Yeah, about that.
roughly. I, for one, as a taxpayer, I'd pay $40 more a year to make sure they don't let my house burn down, so I'm not gonna gripe that.
But you also gotta let them know that I had stated, quoted, unquote, from the great Mike Becker, capital replacement is a huge thing, and I think that's what spurred that thing, and I told Chief Yankovic that if he needed to discuss that, to come to Mr. Becker about doing that. That was one of the biggest things I said in the
Which
budget.
he did. Me and Mr. Becker and Chief Jankovic actually had a discussion over the phone.
I even have a copy of my 40-year capital improvement plan from the last fire department that I ran, so.
And we did have that
share
discussion
that with him
the
as well.
following day with Chief Jankovic, so it was great to see you pump that in their head, taking words right out of Mr. Becker's book.
Well, he's always stated that capital replacement is a huge thing, and it's not something you should ever mess with, and
And as a fire department, you do not get away from it.
no.
Our fire
There's no such thing as
district,
you didn't replace it. You will.
our fire district has a vehicle in its fleet from 1983 still. That just seems crazy to me.
And I drove that when it was new.
I mean, potentially they need to get out and get to a fire that quick, and that 1983 decides to break down, then what?
Some of the vehicles in a fire department's fleet need to start every single time.
But also on the retrospect, that Chief Jankovic and Nick Bartz,
In all that fire
and
district.
that whole fire district have
They
been
do great
doing
on
a
maintaining
great
it.
job of maintaining it, keeping it up. I mean, but there's gonna come to a point where it's, there's been a few things they've had to replace because you can't get parts from anymore.
And then the other thing the fire district spoke of was that JPA is potentially dead.
Yeah, I know. That's
And they're-
been ongoing for,
What's
The-
GPA?
The Joint Powers Agreement.
Oh, okay.
So with that being said, they're looking for the cities to potentially pass a resolution to give them authorization to bill for us. So they would
On our
cover
behalf.
some of their overhead costs, but they had to do a little more homework in that before they totally gave us the thumbs up and asked us to do so, but.
just a back check on that. The Joint Powers Agreement has to be a 100% unanimous vote.
Right.
I'm
One
not-
entity.
One entity, and I'm not gonna say who or what, but
Nor will
originally
I.
there was somebody else that was that one entity that caused a lot of problems in it. And now it's coming back to haunt the GPA. And now there's a different entity that is fighting it tooth and nail, and I'm not gonna go into who it is, but we've tried to reach out to them to go out to their residents in their township and let them know what's going on, because unfortunately, even like in here in the city, we do not get a lot of residents that show up to voice their opinions unless it's something they feel very strongly on. Now, on a township level, it's even far worse, because townships have no other control other than roads. And that's what their big thing is, and most people don't want to waste their time on it.
Unfortunate but true. I'm glad to see people in the audience today, so I'm glad you're all here. Just the council, kind of keep that in mind, that could be coming down the pipe. We might be visiting or talking about it at a later date. I don't mean to jump off, but your discussions after this meeting. now that I see it's up here. So as soon as this one's done, then we'll talk about that. Sorry. Let's move on to business items. K1, resolution approving a special event permit request for the...
Nope.
What?
School
What?
referendum.
Oh,
I moved over here to,
geez, I'm totally confused now.
K1 is Cambridge Sandy District 911 School Referendum Information.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. So we do have representatives from the school district here, if they'd like to step up to the podium. And please state your name and address for the record. You can come up too, you're a big part of this.
I'm a citizen, but I'll come up anytime to talk.
You're backing these two gentlemen.
I'm Chris Campa. I live at 913 Isani Parkway Northwest.
Nate Rudolph, Superintendent of Cambridge Isani Schools, and we are thankful to have us here this evening and for the invitation. So thanks for inviting us, and Mayor Johnson and council members. We know that you're busy this evening. As we prepared tonight's presentation for you, we wanted to make sure that we were uncertain about the technology involved here, and so we put together the presentation over a video so we can go ahead and play that.
I call everyone, all three of these gentlemen up because they worked hard in the school district. The school finance director, the school superintendent, and you may be a resident, but you've led a SWAT team, we'll call it, of individuals to actually back what's going to be presented here. And kudos to every one of you gentlemen. I do know the hardship that this county has with the old superintendent. I myself am supportive. I have kids in the school district, and how do we know if Nate Rudolph and the gang, we'll say, is going to be able to improve our school district unless we give them that push? So that is potentially why I invited you personally to this meeting, because I think this information is vital to get out not only to the county, the townships, but the city of Isani as well.
I appreciate it, and we are here to answer questions, so we'll watch the presentation.
Good day. Welcome to our presentation about the upcoming Cambridge Isani School District referendum. We are happy to share our story with you today.
Can we put the mic closer?
Informative and motivating. Since January, a community task force has been working to study challenges our district faces. They've dug into finances and operations, gone through the budget cutting process, and analyzed funding streams. They came to one strong conclusion. Our schools have a revenue problem. On our end of the year survey with parents last spring, with more than 1,000 responses, funding and budgets were mentioned more than 500 times when asked about what challenges the district faces. To put this into perspective, COVID and the pandemic were only mentioned 48 times. This presentation is intended to be short for two reasons. We've been discussing our district budget situation for more than 3 years, and we believe people understand our budget challenges. We've cut $8.5 million over 3 years and eliminated 100 teachers and staff positions. At the same time, our school district has a long tradition of excellence, and our community takes great pride in our students and our schools. This was very clear through the conversations that the task force engaged in over the past several months while seeking solutions to short and longer term challenges that our district faces. In April, the task force came to consensus that a referendum was needed. They immediately began working on what the community could afford in relation to the district needs. On August, the task force recommended in August, the task force recommendation came to the school board, and the school board unanimously approved. We're often asked, why is a referendum needed? First of all, state funding has not kept pace with inflation. In fact, our general education formula has lost 10% of its buying power since 2003. Even this year, when the legislature touted 2.45% increase, it is not on pace with inflation. Secondly, most school districts have a voter-approved referendum to fill the gap. In fact, the average referendum provides $858 per pupil that our students go without. And third, just a few weeks ago, Schools for Equitable Funding in Education, came out with a new report, and we dropped in rankings again. Cambridge Isani Schools now ranks 311th out of 327 in per pupil funding among all Minnesota school districts. We also rank last in per student funding and per student spending compared to our neighbors in the Mississippi 8 Conference. This is a slide that we've been sharing for more than a year, and interestingly enough, it was new information for some of our community task force members when we shared it with them. So again, we understand that we do not have a spending problem. We can't cut our way out of this situation. We recognize that we have a revenue problem that needs to be fixed. As mentioned in August, our community task force brought forth a recommendation to the school board to hold a two-question referendum. School funding is complex, and last year the referendum was complex as well. This year the task force said, keep it simple. So we are being very specific. Question 1 is about additional funding to support student learning and hire and retain high-quality teachers and staff. That is it. It's that simple. If the referendum is approved, by law, the district can only spend the referendum funds on students and teachers. We know that producing graduates that have advanced skill levels in career and technical education, also sometimes known as vocational and career tech ed, is highly valued by our community, helps our local economy, and provides tremendous opportunities for graduating Blue Jackets. It's hard to maintain or add new things at the high school when the basics of class size and student-teacher relationships are not adequately funded. So the task force subgroup decided to put a second question on the ballot that can only pass if question 1 passes first. So question 2 is about expanding VOTEC classes and opportunities to ensure that all students are career and college ready. Together, these two questions will raise $3.6 million annually. It's less than we need. We still need to work with our state legislators to figure out state funding formulas, but we believe it's something that our community can afford. So if both questions pass, the tax impact will be $12 per month on a home valued at $200,000. That is less than what we were asking for last year, and the community task force felt it was affordable to our community. We've worked closer with Ellers Public Finance Advisors, our bond counsel, to minimize the impact on taxpayers. Part of the plan is a commitment to refinance and restructure some long-term bonds when the notes are callable in 2022. Similar to refinancing a mortgage, lower payments allows us to focus money on other important priorities. When we refinance, we'll lower our annual tax levy to make room for some of the referendum costs. But don't have to take my word for it. Here on this slide, you'll see that there's a tax calculator available on our website. You can find that at c-ischools.org/referendum to see what the tax impact on your property would be. And if you own agricultural property, you might be surprised to know that because of refinancing of existing debt, taxes on agricultural land will likely go down slightly if the referendum passes. Educational funding is a shared responsibility, and the state will pay a portion of the referendum if approved. Right now, those state tax dollars that our residents are already paying and is money that goes to other districts because we don't have a local referendum. We are leaving $500,000 on the table each year. District residents may vote in person at the high school or at district offices, Education Service Center. If you are not registered, just walk in and bring a current driver's license or utility bill. Executive Assistant Melanie is very friendly and will walk you through the process. Cambridge Isani School District Office is located at 625A Main Street North in Cambridge. And voting hours are weekdays, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Cambridge Isani High School, and entering the main entrance there, is located at 430 8th Avenue Northwest in Cambridge. And voting hours are weekdays, 7:30 to 4 p.m. If you plan on early voting or early voting in person, you can complete your application and ballot at the same time at the district office or at the high school. If you have any questions, please feel free to call us or visit the website. Strong communities have strong schools, and this referendum is needed to keep our schools and our communities strong. Thank you very much.
As mentioned in the presentation, really trying to keep our presentations simple. Last year, as we were out with the referendum, Chris and I think we did 78 presentations throughout the communities. Happy to go anywhere and connect with anybody. Would like to open it up for questions.
I don't so much have a question because, well, you guys know, the community might not know, but I stay heavily involved in our school district. Always have, always will. And I don't have to sugarcoat like you do. You were left a pile of turds when you became the superintendent, and you're pretty much being told to polish it and make it look pretty. That's not going to happen unless everybody realizes you need a little push. Maybe hand it a pooper scooper. We could put it that way, you know, and then maybe you might have a little bit of help on what you're capable of. And everybody always says, and I see it, whether it's social media, emails, phone calls, text messages, why should we give them more money? I've heard that a bazillion times. You gave past teams, we'll call it, money. You didn't give this team money. And I think if everybody gave this team a fair shake, I think this team would shock everybody. It is less money than what was being asked for in the original referendum. I did say earlier that I'm not one that I'm not going to hem and haw over $40 a year for my fire district. I sure in the heck ain't going to hem and haw over $100 for potentially my kids, the residents' kids, and potentially the future of the city. I will gladly, and I'll publicly say it now, I will gladly go vote for this referendum. Any questions by the council?
No. Did a good job.
Councilman Gordon?
I mean, you know, Nick and I have sat down and kind of discussed this issue before over lunch. And, I think I agree with Jeff 100% that you guys have been handed in a really tough situation. And I think that, you know, my interactions with both of you have been real good. And I think you guys are doing the best you can with a really tough situation. I guess my question for you, which is probably some of the questions I'm sure you've probably heard before, but, you know, I guess the way I see it, number one, this is maybe more of a state issue that, and from talking with Nick, that this was, you know, because of the way the state funding was structured, that we've kind of got the short end of the stick. And I understand there's, you know, money that the state's gonna match if we have a referendum, but, I guess that would be my main point. And then the other point is you have schools like Community Christian School in Cambridge, and I think their budget per pupil is like 67 or 65 or something like that. Let's call it 7,000. And you guys are more at like 12,000. And maybe that's changed now with some of the cuts, but and I know you have some services that you offer, but education is the main service that we're talking about providing for these students. And you're going to tell me it takes $5,000 more per student to educate them. You know, I mean, almost double what we're looking at. I mean, it's not double, obviously, but it's a considerably amount more. Those would be the concerns that I have, I guess. But.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math in my head on what our per pupil spending is, so I'll get back to that. But Cambridge Christian School, so we have a really good partnership with them, and they're serving a really good mission. They don't have some of the same expense requirements that we are required to do. For example, we provide all of their transportation, which is quite a big part of our budget, as well. And then we have a lot of just state requirements that we have to spend.
If I could interject, transportation, so it's awful. I mean, it's changed since the beginning of the school year, but from my understanding, they're splitting kids up between the high school and the middle school, and I guess I don't have kids that are that age yet, so, but I mean, it sounded like kids aren't getting home until like 5:30 in the afternoon or something like that, or, I mean, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, no, that was definitely true to start the year. We did have a rough rollout. We were down, the week before school started, we were down 12 routes that we did not have drivers for. So we were really scrambling to really redesign the entire system, Band-Aid it where we can and kind of start over where we had to. Yesterday, we were able to get every student to school on time. So that's a big, we've come a long way in the first 2 weeks of school. It feels a lot longer, but it's really a function of the labor shortage. We lost a lot of drivers there right at the end. We're trying to patch it where we can. It's gotten a lot better. That doesn't mean that there won't be more bumps ahead, because there will be as we struggle to get drivers in. That is, part of the reason why we did switch to a two-tier system this year. So again, we hope that will be better, but I do understand it was a rough go through these first 2 days. But then, so the function, right, so we just have additional requirements that as a school district in Minnesota, as a public school district, that we have to spend that other private schools or maybe other types of schools don't have to. So that does, impact our budget as well. But, it's really, so I grew up here, graduated from high school here about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Doesn't want to show his age.
Yeah. And, I always reflect back to my past experiences, because, when I graduated, this is a great school district, but I always thought this was such a great school district. It was part of a great community, that it was one that really rallies around the education and the teachers that we had back then, and, we were top in sports and everything, and we still have that, but so much has changed. And it's always, even though that I've been in this role now as finance director for 2 years, I'm just always astounded. And so much has changed because things are so much different in terms of how schools are funded over the last 20 years. For example, our community members, if you lived in your house 20 years ago, you paid more in school taxes then than you pay now on a dollar per dollar basis. And it's really changed in how schools are funded, whereas schools in the metro area, they just get more money. And a referendum is what we are asking for on the election this fall. Originally, when school districts started to go down that route, it was called an excess levy. And the reason it was called an excess levy is because it was really just meant to be supplemental to your budgeting process. But that's not the case anymore. School districts, especially school districts like ours in rural areas like this, that don't have a large business tax base, like a referendum is really just crucial to compete with the other school districts. It's became a needed part of the budgeting process. I never thought in a million years I'd be ever in a position to advocate for a tax increase, but really, it's now that we've spent 2 years here, I feel that it's really important, and it's really what this school district needs in order to provide for our students.
Be remiss if we didn't just thank our task force. So we had 38 individuals, cross-representatives from Isani, Cambridge, rural, in town, manufacturing, health field, every part of our district come together since that January and really work hard on trying to solve some of the issues. Some are financial, as we're talking about tonight. Also things like transportation, things like our building and grounds. And so public schools are an entity they are owned by the communities. And so this is a question that gets to come back to the community and provide what our future Blue Jackets education looks like.
that answer your questions, Councilman Gordon?
Yeah, I guess I would still go back to it being more of a state issue, and for me, it's always the overall dollar amount. And you guys mentioned you cut, I think in the presentation you just did, it was $8 million over 3 years, but if I remember right, the budget was like $60 million, and, you know, so I mean, what are we looking at now, like, you know, 57, 58 million or something like that? That's a ton of money, and I cannot believe that we can't educate our kids for less than $58 million a year.
I mean, I would have to agree with the presentation. I don't think they have a spending problem. I think, I don't know other way to put it than they've been left a pile of turds, Councilman Gordon. And now they're in a deep hole. And how do they dig themselves out unless it's one scoop at a time? And this is potentially, they're trying to scoop.
Nick Izzo, 1107 Maplewood Avenue. One thing that I've really admired about this new administration is how positive they have kept things as they've inherited something not so positive, right? I have been impressed with how open they have been, and this is an administration who is willing to be held accountable, and you've seen that through some of these task forces that they've put together for the first time that we've never had in this school district. Community members have been involved. We have a new finance advisory council in which community members are involved, and they're opening books to us. I would encourage anybody with any questions to set up a time to talk to these gentlemen, because they are going to be willing to open. They have nothing to hide. Their sole purpose in what they're doing is to educate our children and to build our communities. And with this plan that they have in place, it's a win-win. I don't like to, we talk about taxes being raised. We need to throw that terminology out, because this is an investment, a $120 investment annually for ourselves and in our communities. And if you want to get selfish, it is an investment for ourselves, because if we're in a good community, people are going to want to move here, right? Our economy climbs. And if that happens, our home values go up quite a bit, right? No matter what the current state of the national economy is. Again, reach out to these gentlemen and ask the questions that you have, and you can see that the plans that they have in place are for the betterment of our community and our kids.
Very good, thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, why don't you respond to my email, by the way? I need a contact for community education.
Yes, I'll get you one. I wonder if it's stuck in a different email. Yeah, okay. We'll find it.
Let's move on to the business item K2, it would be numbered, the resolution approving a special event permit request for the Isani Liquor Grand Opening Celebration.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we have the Isani Municipal Liquor Store that's about to open this fall, which is very exciting. We have a grand opening celebration planned for the new store, and it'll take place on Thursday, November 18th. It'll be through Saturday, November 20th, so we have a few days going on here. It'll be with business hours of the store, which is 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. I do want to make that correction. It does go till 10 p.m. There won't be any road closures. The information is going to be marketed out so we can hopefully get the word out to everybody, and we hope to have about 2,100 people come through. We're going to have food trucks and some great things that'll be free for people to enjoy.
Any discussion by the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Burgley and a second by Councilman Lundin. All in favor, state your name and say aye.
Paul Burgley, aye.
Steve Lundin, aye.
And Jeff Johnson, aye. Therefore, motion passes 4-0. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Burgley and a second by Councilman Lundin. All in favor, state your name and say aye.
Aye. Paul Burgley.
Steve Lundin, aye.
Councilman Gordon? Oh. And myself, aye.
Give a thumbs up, Councilman Gordon.
You're skipping, so I don't know what you're saying, Councilman Gordon.
Jimmy Gordon, aye.
Thank you. And myself, aye. Therefore, motion passes 4-0. Any other things we missed, Ms. Wood?
No, that is all, and then we will go into some closed sessions.
Unfortunately, audience, we are going into a closed session. Closed session is for discussion to sell property PID 16.053.0070, 400 West Dual Boulevard, Northeast in Isani, Minnesota, persistent to Minnesota Statute Section D.05 Subdivision 3C. So I have to ask all you guys to exit the room, and we'll call you back in just a second.
Thank you.